how important it is for ops to be thinking about the end customer and not just, the functional teams that they support. Ultimately, that's who we're trying to solve for, is our customers. And I think it's really important to create a foundation in which your ops and RevOps teams are solving for that end customer.
All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Business is Human. I am stoked for today's guest, Alison Elworthy, newly VP of RevOps at Hubspot. How are you doing, Alison?
Great. Happy to be here. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. First off, I love Hubspot. We were talking about this before. You guys have built such a tremendous company, not only from a product perspective, which we're happy customers of, but just from a cultural perspective. So many people I know started their careers at HubSpot and have this kind of HubSpot love. And it's just launched so many people's that I respect careers. And I mean, you've kind of been there through it all.
It's crazy. I'm coming up on 10 years this summer, which is insane. I would have never expected to be at a company this long, but have grown so much and have been so fortunate to take on so many exciting opportunities.
Yeah. And your background's fascinating, and I want to get into that. But I think what I wanted to talk about today is just RevOps is hot. It's everybody's talking about it. Every company is thinking about re-architecting their operations team to kind of focus around the broader revenue operations and customer experience context. And it sounds like HubSpot's in the midst of this transition. And so it would be awesome just to kind of get some background. Like, why is this happening now? You guys are obviously a leader in all things sales, marketing, and customer success, just based on the nature of what you do. So it's an interesting time for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah. HubSpot's mission is to help millions of organizations grow better. And we're serious about that millions number. And so we have a pretty big mission to fulfill. And, we've grown pretty quickly over the past 10 years since I've been there. And now we're entering a new phase of growth for the company. And I think what we're realizing is that we really need to double down and think differently about how we scale. And that's really the reason for why RevOps and why now for HubSpot. I think RevOps really holds the key to helping organizations scale and grow in a different way and at a new pace.
I think a lot of people, it's like, okay, RevOps is sales ops plus CS ops plus marketing ops. And so is it really just that? Like how is this going to help you guys unlock scale and growth in a different way?
Yeah, a lot of people say that, bringing those teams and unifying those teams, whether you do that formally in an organization or you align them across their various teams, that's like step 1 or step 0.5. There's so much more that goes into RevOps, or in terms of how I'm thinking about RevOps and that transformation of operations to really help companies grow. So, one thing that I think a lot about at HubSpot is how we grow, right? Typically, a lot of companies, at least in SaaS, you just add more headcount, right? You add more sales reps, you add more CSMs, and that drives your growth, which is great. And that's linear growth. And what you tend to see is your revenue growth kind of going in pace with your headcount growth, which is great, and is one way to grow. I think as we start to think about scale, we want to break linear growth, right? We want to find ways in which our output is more than our input. And that's really where RevOps comes into play, is figuring out those strategies, those systems, those processes, that data that really helps you break linear growth, get smart about what you're investing in so you can get a greater output.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I've seen that's interesting, and I remember I was actually at the Inbound conference. Brian Halligan had a graph where it was, a typical sales and marketing funnel, where it's like the triangle, right? But the thing that he said that I think is so important, and why RevOps is increasingly more important, is it's actually a lot of people don't realize your customer is often your best channel for the top. for the top part of the funnel. And so it really is kind of more of, it's not just like a put them through a funnel. It's almost more of like a circular motion. And it does require that full perspective for across the entire customer life cycle for people to understand the different strategies that you can employ.
Exactly. That's it. And what we talk about is the funnel's broken, right? Your traditional marketing and sales funnel is broken, and companies need to evolve and start thinking about that funnel as a flywheel, right? Because customers are typically an output of the funnel, and that's it. But what we're missing is that customers drive future growth, right? Your customers are your biggest marketing asset. I mean, talk about word of mouth, right?
Yep.
You don't go and buy anything unless you talk to your colleagues, your friends, your peers. And so it's really important to think about that funnel as a flywheel and how your customers drive future growth. And so at RevOps at HubSpot, we talk like our mission is to fuel that flywheel. And to do that, you need to think of the entire end-to-end customer experience. And so one thing, that we're trying to shift is to take a customer in approach as opposed to a function out approach. I think oftentimes when we are, working in silos and sales, you've got marketing, you've got CS, we're approaching the problem from one lens, right? We're not thinking holistically. And I think what's great about pulling these ops teams together, becoming one team, we can think holistically about that customer experience and truly solve for the customer as opposed from one silo or another.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I think a lot of people, we have a lot of salespeople that listen to this podcast, a lot of marketers, some people that maybe don't, they think of sales ops and it's kind of like someone in a spreadsheet or in a Salesforce building report or, building something. They're not necessarily as connected to the customer. And talk to me about some of the, why that needs to change. And some of the things that you've done at HubSpot, because I think this is a pretty groundbreaking idea. I certainly haven't heard it before we started talking prior to this episode.
Yeah, I think we were talking about, my history at HubSpot. So when I first started at HubSpot, I worked in marketing operations, I worked in sales operations, I worked in kind of general ops. And 3 years ago, almost to the day, our COO came to me and said, I want you to run customer success. And I said, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I've been in ops. I never interact with customers. There's a layer in between me and the customer. Like, are you insane putting me in charge of our customer success organization that works with our customers day in and day out? Like, I am the least qualified person to do this. So anyways, I guess my biggest realization as now, I'm transitioning from customer success into RevOps is how important it is for ops to be thinking about the customer, the end customer, and not just, the functional teams that they support. And I think that's been a gap actually in the industry. And I look back to my experience in ops, never interacting with customers. And, ultimately that's who we're trying to solve for is our customers. And I think it's really important to create a foundation in which your ops and RevOps teams are solving for that end customer.
Tactically, what does that look like? Is that ops people shotgunning calls? Is it them listening to things on a call recorder? How do they achieve that proximity to the customer?
Yeah, I think it's all of that. Something I still do is I shadow a lot of support calls or sales calls. So that's really important, from an individual kind of ops perspective. I think there are things that you can do as ops professionals or leaders to create that mindset. So one thing that we did at HubSpot, when I was in customer success, I started this team called the Voice of the Customer Team. And the Voice of the Customer Team, that was their goal, is to really bring the voice of the customer to not just our CS team, but our executive team, our entire team at HubSpot, and to truly solve some of the challenges and pain points and friction throughout that customer experience. And as we created RevOps, we actually moved that Voice of the Customer team into RevOps. And so Voice of the Customer is part of our RevOps team within our strategy team in RevOps. And the idea there is that we want to build our strategy, our go-to-market strategy, on top of the customer experience in a customer in way, as opposed to kind of a functional approach. So we've taken some pretty drastic measures, I would say, to ensure that we're leading with that customer experience from our strategy from a go-to-market perspective.
So that's fascinating, Alison. And I think for me as a product marketer, a big part of my job is gathering that customer voice and trying to really share it. And at Troops as a company, we're really fascinated by the way that teams capture market information, customer insights, and share it with teams that wouldn't get it, right? Like ops, like engineering, product. So I'm curious, like that customer voice team, how do they go about, like tactically, how do they go about sharing their insights with the rest of the organization and making sure that knowledge compounds?
Yeah, so as you can imagine, I think a lot of companies are just so obsessed with data, and so NPS is one of them. We have so many channels to get customer feedback, product feedback, ideas, our NPS. So they kind of take all of the different channels of customer feedback and consolidate them and digest them, and really put together, a thoughtful perspective on, what's working for our customers, what's not working for our customers, and then what we've done. There are a few things in which we've been able to leverage that information and really take action within HubSpot. So one way is we have our NPS. We actually have a Slack channel that the majority of the company is part of, that whenever a customer kind of logs an NPS and comment, it pops up in that Slack channel. And what's really cool to see is that you'll see someone in product, in CS, in ops, in sales, whoever it might be, kind of, taking a thread on that NPS response and figuring out, okay, well, how can we improve this for the customer? Or maybe it was a great response. How do we double down on this elsewhere in our business? So that's what's happening kind of on the front lines. At the executive level, we no longer have, a lot of companies have these like staff meetings, right? And we'll talk about HR and hiring, the budgets, yada, yada. We actually decided to flip our staff meeting on its head. And now it's a customer first staff meeting. So all we talk about is kind of our customer feedback. The voice of the customer team runs that. They select what themes or topics we want to cover. We always have customers join us for that meeting. And that's what we do at the exec level with that customer feedback. So those are just kind of two examples in which we've kind of taken that voice of the customer team and really empowered them to bring our customer's voice to the table.
That's awesome. I love that. I think, so many companies, they get lost in the data and the spreadsheets. And a lot of times there's missing that qualitative component. And so it's essential that teams have both. One thing that I thought I wanted to touch on, when we talk to most ops teams, ops people, it's constantly the same. I'm underwater. I have a million things going on. Don't bother me. And it's a very reactive cadence. And, I think some of the ways that we're seeing people think about RevOps is how do we kind of go from that way of working and frankly, that like definition within an organization and expectation to more of a team that is actually proactively driving the strategy. How are you guys ensuring that happens at HubSpot?
Yeah, I think there needs to be a transformation of ops. It's not just pulling these teams together, right? It's changing the way in which they operate. It needs to happen at HubSpot as well as many other companies. And I think, there are a couple things here at play. I think historically, as companies grow and HubSpot in the early days, whenever there was a problem or an issue, we had trying to fill a crack, you throw an ops person at it. And we've created this ops career and function in a reactive way, which has fundamentally set up operations to be in this reactive mode, right? We're always trying to catch up. We're always trying to fix things. It's very reactive. And this type of motion makes it, your to-do list adds up. It's tough to be in operations, right?
Yeah.
And I think what's so hard is that a lot of ops folks, we have an amazing ops team at HubSpot. Like the team is so impressive and they are so innovative. They have big ideas, but sometimes it's hard to get out of your to-do list and all of that fixing that needs to happen to really push forward some of those ideas with big innovative ideas that are going to help your company scale, right? We talk about, this idea of scale, and you need your ops team and professional to think big, be innovative, to be experimenting, to help your business scale. But if they're bogged down in these to-do lists and feel like they're underwater, you're never going to get that type of scale. And so part of RevOps and part of my challenge moving forward is going to be, how do I free up the time and really unleash our ops teams to help drive that strategy that is going to help us scale or help our business scale? And so that is part of this transformation that I think needs to happen as we think about RevOps and we start to formalize it. And I think it's been so challenging in the past because there's no like standard playbook for ops. You think about marketing and sales. Great. It's very clear in terms of, what the marketing function does, what marketing professionals needs to do. It's a big organization. Things are standardized. Like there's a playbook. There is no playbook for ops. And I think we need to create that playbook for ops to really transform ops professionals from being underwater to unleashed and to drive impact and help businesses scale.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, I even just think about marketing. It's like, people come in and it's like, okay, cool. We're going to do content marketing. Then we're going to do paid. Then we're going to do webinars. Then we're going to do a conference sponsorship. And then, it's kind of like the same bag of tricks and in a new flavor. And like, I guess, how do you think about establishing that playbook? Like, where do you start?
Great question. That's what we're trying to figure out now at HubSpot and working with my leadership team on. But I have some ideas. First, I think it's helpful to centralize. I think it's helpful to bring these teams together, whether you do that formally with your org or not, or just align the teams. Alignment's key. First, you need to get aligned across your ops organizations. And then from there, and what we're starting to discover is like, okay, where is there duplication of work, right? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes what you'll see is someone that's in CS ops and sales ops are actually doing the same thing. Like, well, can just one person do that? We free up a head to do something else, right? There's a lot of duplication of work. I think there's a lot of telephone going on of, trying to track down folks because they're on different teams. And, once you're centralized and aligned and have aligned goals, you can move faster. From there, I think we're realizing there's standardization that can happen. How do we better standardize our data, our systems, our processes to allow our teams to move faster? This is all kind of the friction that I think is we see across operations that we're going to first try to remove to allow our teams to just move faster. And then it's okay, well, what can we automate? I think oftentimes, there are all these great new ideas that get pumped into the business that ops lead, and then they take responsibility of, and oftentimes it's manual processes, and it's hard. And those manual processes and ideas just keep piling up, and we have to think about how we automate more of that. So if we can automate more of that manual work, repetitive work, that's going to free up time for our ops folks to innovate and really infuse new ideas and strategies into the business. So it's really shifting the culture from one that's kind of filling the cracks in your flywheel, if you will, to one that's fueling it.
I can't help but think how important it will have to be for companies across the go-to-market team, right? For the commercial leaders, whether that's the VP of sales or the customer success team, to communicate to your team that, hey, ops is not the janitor. They're not the build the reports and make me this alert in Troops or Salesforce or whatever, and constantly kind of running around with their chicken with their head cut off. Because otherwise, there's going to be friction still. If the expectations aren't aligned on the core function of that team and really how they're a partner to you in a more strategic way, I could see that. I could see that being challenging.
Yeah, I think that's critical, right? Because that's really how you unleash the team. Everyone's got to change their mind. It's a mindset, right? Everyone in your go-to-market, and actually your company needs to have a mindset shift to really embrace this if you want to see that type of change in your business.
So, Alison, quick question here. I usually read pieces that our guests write beforehand, and you were talking about some things like you're a planner at heart, but you have to understand that there's going to be setbacks, mistakes, oversights, things like that, and you're also a big fan of creating patterns, right? And right now you're moving from a situation where you were comfortable to you're the first car, you're in a snowstorm, you can't see what's in front of you. How are your patterns changing now? And what do you expect some of your biggest challenges to be 6 months from now?
Yeah. So, right now, this is a big change going from customer success back into ops, and so much has changed since I've been in ops. So really I'm in, absorption mode and listening mode, and really partnering closely with my leadership team, learning from them, learning from the entire, all the different ops teams, to really figure out like, where is the opportunity? We talk about, I talked about step one is centralizing and discovering, what is it that we can standardize and centralize and automate. So that's really step one for me, is to listen and absorb and to understand where there's opportunity. Oh gosh, in terms of patterns, that's a great question. I'm not sure totally, because granted, I'm just a few days into my new role, but I'm not sure exactly what specifically will change. But one thing that I don't want to change is everything that I've learned leading the customer success organization and working so closely with our customers. I think that's one thing I don't want to lose as I move into this role, because I truly believe that the customer experience and what your customers are saying and their sentiment, you need to lead with that from a go-to-market perspective. And, we talk about creating a disruptive customer experience. That's what's going to set you apart from your competitors, right? Like, I love the example. We talk about this all the time. Like, think about Casper, right? It's just a mattress. But the experience of buying that mattress is so much better than having to go and lie down and test one out in the store. I mean, the product more or less the same, but the experience of buying that mattress is so much better. And so, that's what is top of mind for me, is that customer experience, because that's going to be a competitive edge moving forward.
Yeah, I can't help but think, I was recently in Mexico for New Year's, and I love when restaurants bring you like a small appetizer for free, and they're like, I know they do it for everybody, but it's like, hey, the chef just wanted to give you guys a little something special. And I could have a terrible meal, but if that happens, I'm like, this restaurant's awesome. They really take care of you. And every restaurant was doing that. And I thought it was so cool. And you're so right. Like, it really is those like small moments of delight that create, evangelists, which kind of gets back to what we were talking before. How do we turn our customers into our number one channel? What's something that HubSpot does that you think is unique or awesome or has been highly effective in the customer experience?
A few things. We listen to our customers and we invest in our customers, and that's across the business, right? That's in product. We have a phenomenal UX team, and we have really doubled down there in terms of, user research, what our customers need, et cetera. And then also, on the customer success side, our support org, we don't treat our support team like a cost center, right? We over-invest in our support team because they're so phenomenal in providing help and support. And to be honest, that's kind of our brand at HubSpot. We've had this brand of this helping brand forever, ever since I've been at HubSpot. And we've been really cautious not to squeeze there and to invest in those teams, because we truly believe in creating a customer experience, whether that's, you're using our product, or you have a question about it and you have to call help, to, every facet of our business. We are customer obsessed. And I think that's important, is making sure, and you're analyzing, what the customer experience is, whether you're dealing with someone from legal or finance to, the product to a support specialist.
Yeah. And frankly, the product-led growth business model that you guys have operated on for a while, I think really, frankly, makes that easier to be a helper versus someone that's like has to get the sale, right? Your value is aligned with utilization, which, boy, there's a guy, I think his name is Kevin Kaiser, who like used to run the upsell team, or like I forget what the sales team was called, but it wasn't called sales team. It was called like use more of HubSpot team or something. And I'm like, man, that must be so fun to sell a product that's just oriented around getting people to use it more. Like, that's your sales motion. And I think that's frankly why that's the model of the future for most go-to-markets, because you want to have a scenario where if your customers win, you win. And it just aligns so well with that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, why don't we go to the lightning round, which is personally my favorite part of the show because we get to know a little bit more about our guests on the personal side. Andre, this is your specialty, man. Take us away.
Alison, you have had a ton of different roles. It's like you were groomed for RevOps. But what is the biggest inflection point in your career?
Biggest inflection point was going from ops into customer success.
Is that nerve-wracking?
Yes, hell yes. I was convinced. I told her, I'm like, you are nuts. What are you thinking? Like, I know nothing about our customers. I'm in ops, in spreadsheets, but kind of in the shadows over here. You want me up in front of our customers and leading a massive team? I went from a team of 10 to 1,000. My God.
What is your current 10X project right now, and why are you so excited about it?
Oh gosh, RevOps, establishing RevOps for Hubspot. That is my 10X project. And the reason why I'm so excited / anxious about it is we've got to write the playbook for ops. There is no playbook for ops right now. And so it's a pretty big ask of trying to transform ops and creating RevOps as a function just like we think about marketing and sales.
Look, you've been at HubSpot for 10 years now, as you were saying, or close to 10 years. What company would you work for if not for HubSpot?
Gosh, I'm like HubSpot through and through, drink the orange Kool-Aid. This is a biased response, but my husband works at Toast, which is a restaurant.
Nice.
Management system. And so they are on fire. Like they're transforming an industry. I'm all about companies that are transforming the world. And that's one which, they're doing some pretty exciting stuff. So as long as he wasn't there, he would have to leave.
We know Toast intimately. And what an amazing agility that business has to kind of completely change their model with everything that's happened with the pandemic. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, it's remarkable, the agility there. It's been awesome to watch from the sidelines, for sure.
What is one killer personal habit that you contribute a lot of your success to?
I'd say I'm pretty adaptable. A lot of new things have kind of come my way, and I've always been open-minded. I've always said yes. I'm waiting for that to bite me at some point, but I think being adaptable and open-minded to new opportunities and challenges.
What is one skill that you'd like to ensure to pass on to your children?
I think it's that. I think it's being adaptable. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 8-month-old. So being able to roll with the punches would make my life a whole lot easier at this phase in life.
That's epic, and I agree. I remember reading your post about kind of one way to get ahead in your career is to say yes to the things that most people say no to. And I think that's such profound advice for young people because therein lies opportunities for major growth.
For sure. And sometimes, I think a lot of folks see that upward ladder,
Yep.
very narrow. And if you're too focused on, go back to that T-shaped career, just going up, you're going to miss a ton of opportunity. You got to take some side steps to really accelerate your career later down the line.
The upward ladder might be the slowest path to the top.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
I agree. I remember I had a friend that worked at Google who's, I don't know, they have this whole system where it's like, I've been here 6 years and I'm at level 3 CB or whatever. And I was just like, man, there's no way I would ever get the job. I'd have to wait a lifetime to get the job I want there. So I gotta go do something more innovative and come in through the side if I ever wanted to work at Google. But Alison, this has been so fun, and we're so excited to see what you're doing at HubSpot. I think you guys have always been at the forefront of go-to-market strategies, ideas, software, and done an amazing job sharing the learnings with the rest of the world. And so we're very excited to follow along, very excited for you, and we're just super grateful that you spent some time with us today.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me. It's fun.